Hi friends, welcome back to our tutorials. We are continuing with our Angular 9 full tutorial series, and in today's episode we are going to learn about form array. Form array plays a very important role when you are building a modern web application in which your form elements may get added or removed dynamically. Extremely important use case, almost most applications will use this. We'll learn all about it in today's episode. Welcome back. My name is Sridhar. I have over 10 years of experience as a full stack developer, and I'm here to share my knowledge on modern web technologies with you. I'm also here to learn from you all. So during the course of this tutorial series, if you have any doubts, any queries on the code samples that I share or on the tutorials or explanations, please feel free to ask me in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help you. You will notice that I'm putting in a lot of hard work in compiling these tutorials for you. So I'll really appreciate if you can support me, encourage me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you in advance. I've created an Angular full tutorial playlist where we have close to now 50 tutorials covering all the basics of Angular as well as the advanced pieces. So I highly recommend you, if you really want to learn and master Angular 9, you should check out this tutorial series. Thank you again. So far, we are focusing on learning Angular forms, and in today's episode, we are going to learn about form array. Form array is a very important piece of reactive forms, so make sure you go through this tutorial very well, practice the samples that I share, and also if you're stuck anywhere, just ask me in the comment section. So what is form array and why form arrays, right? So far, if you see, we have started using form controls and form group in reactive forms. So a form control is nothing but a simple element or a control that is displayed in the form. When you club these multiple form controls, it becomes a form group. This helps us in building forms, right? And before I go any further, let me give you a little use cases of what we have done so far and how you can correlate the forms. Let me show you the application. So this is the application we have built so far. So let's say this input that you're seeing right now is a form control. This is a form control. This is a form control. The checkbox is a form control. All of these controls put together becomes a form group, right? That is how this is all related. Let me quickly make some notes for you so it's easy. So form control is nothing but any element, any form field in your form becomes a form control, right? And when you group multiple multiple form controls, it becomes a form group. This is how the association goes. Now that's why you see there are three form controls in this particular form group, right? So that's how we should look at it. With that understanding, now we can see what is form arrays. So form arrays, you will have complex needs. For example, let me show you an example I'm building. So if you take a look at this, this is a little complex form which will have multiple fields. You can dynamically add rows. You should be able to remove the rows. So this becomes a little complex and you cannot do it by static template driven forms. That's where our reactive forms and in especially form arrays comes into picture. Now, one of the most important feature, this is a very important feature when working with reactive forms. For complex forms, we will mostly or in almost all use cases will need form arrays. Most modern web applications will need us to work with form arrays. Now, if you, like I said, it will help us in DOM interactions. For example, we can add a particular element and remove it from the array, right? So let me again give you a little background of how this will work. Now, form array, right? So what this will group is, it will be an array which will consist of multiple form controls. So see, so if you remember by the definition, we said multiple form controls becomes a group, right? So a form array is nothing but a group of multiple form controls or a form group also. It can also, this is also a valid form group array. So what I can say here is this is a form array which has, this is also valid because it is now an array of form groups, right? So a form array can be anything. It can be of form controls. It can be of form array, right? Now, with that being said, let's see some more use cases. So it is a class that tracks the value and validity of state of form control, form array, and form group. Form array aggregates the values of the child form control into an array, right? So like I said, it will have multiple childs of form controls, right? And it will become a form array. Whenever we track about the status of the form array, let's say I have 4 form controls in my array. Now, let's say this is valid, this is valid, this is valid, and this becomes invalid status, right? So the entire form array becomes invalid. So if any of the form controls is invalid, the entire form array becomes invalid. Now that is the beauty. So for form array to be valid, all has to be valid. If even one goes invalid, the entire form array will become invalid. Now that's what I said. If one of the form controls is invalid, the entire array becomes invalid. Now there are 3 use cases that we can use with form arrays. So there can be multiple different combinations or ways that we can club the form array. We'll see all of that now. So for the first use case I'm going to give you is a simple use case, which is we have a form and it has multiple array elements, right? Let's see that first. So we'll have 3 types of form arrays. We'll have a simple form array, which has just array form control arrays, right, with a simple array items. And the second is we can get the properties and methods of the array. The third is a little complex where we will club multiple form controls and groups together, right? So let's get that started by first looking at the simple use case. All right, so open up the checkout form that we are building. So we are still continuing to use the checkout component here, which is what we have done in the previous episodes. So if you have missed it, please go back and refer notes and check out those tutorials so that you have the continuity in learning. All right, so in the checkout component.ts, if you see, we are using a form builder, right? So here you see, we are using a form builder where we have an email address, we have quantity, and we have terms. So we have added some validators for these. This is a simple example of a reactive form where we have 3 fields that we have mapped, or I can say 3 form controls which we have grouped. Okay, so far I hope you are following and if you have any doubts, please ask me. Now, 3 form controls are grouped and using the form builder and it becomes our form. Now we are going to add it here and we are going to say, let's say items, right? Now, this, if I do like this, it will become a simple form control. I don't want that. Instead, what we need is we need the form builder dot array. So I'm now saying that this particular items will have multiple elements to it, right? Or I can say you can say that it's just like an array which will have multiple items which will be inserted in it, right? So what we'll say is we will say this is an array of, let's say, how many items you want to add in it. Say item will have an item ID, right? And then it can also have item name. We'll fill up this in just a bit, and item description, right? So here we are just adding um, so this is one of the group. So like I said, it's an array and we are trying to say that it's will be a group of it. So I'm going to make it a group by adding form builder dot group. If you remember, just like how we have done here, will give the same way, right? So inside the array, we are just giving the same form builder dot group, right? So we'll just mention the same form builder dot group, and I'm saying item ID, item name, description, right? Now let's see this in action. And to implement that, we will have to enable the items in the template, right? So to do that, what we'll do is three important things. One, we have to add the form array name, which is items, the same name, this form array. So far we are using form control name. Now we are using form array name and telling that there is an array by the name items, which is what is this. And then we are going to use a for loop to print those values. And to do the association, we'll use the form control name and we'll use item name or description, the same keys that we have used in this particular form group. So now once we have done it, let's see that in action. So now you see this got added to 3 mark as done. So that's because of this value. So sorry. All right. So we have added a group and we are saying it will have item ID, item name, description, and done, which is a checkbox basically. One is for the, let me just remove it and show you how this will look. Instead of a link, I'm just going to use and print it. So here you can say item ID because that's what we have the value here as. So now you see one arc tutorials, right? So this is now an array and it can hold multiple values in it. Since, and what is the type of values it will hold? It will hold a group of values, which is this. Right now, let me convert it into some nodes for you so that's much easier. So first thing we need to do, form array, right? So remember, think of it this way. A form array is can be an individual set, right? It can be just collection of some form controls like this, or it can become a complex one where we can have a form group and this form group will have multiple form controls, right? So this is that example. Now if I have to write a simple one, right? um, so this is little complex because here I'm using a group directly, but we can also have a simple values that we just saw here, which is building form controls to it. So let me show you that also quickly. So now we have items, and now I'm going to say that this dot form builder dot array, and I'm going to say that this is an array of form controls, and here I'm going to say angular. So now you see, so now this has become an array which has two form controls, and to display that we don't need this. We'll keep it very very simple. Instead what we'll do, we'll comment off this here. Okay, going to cut it for now, or you can just modify this. So it's a little tricky, so I would suggest you pause this video, take your time, understand, build it. It will work. Just have patience. All right. So now I'm saying that form array is items, and what we need to do is loop that and print the value. And what is the value here? It's just of item, or just we can say I, because it's only single entry, right? Okay, so we don't need the checkbox, and we have one form checkout dot controls form. Okay, and this we don't need it here. All right, so now we have items. Now let's populate some values to it. We have the form control, and once we have that, we will just give the form control name and bind it. So how do we do that? Let's associate it here and you're done. So now we should see the values Angular, React. So this is of an example where we have only one simple form control, but you will never have this use case. Don't worry. In most cases, right? So we have form array where we have added two new form controls like this, right? So this is a form array which has two simple form controls, right? But in most applications, you will never have simple two fields. Most apps will have a complex item, right? So it's see, for example, if you want to add an item, you want to track it. You want to track it with an ID. You want to delete it. You should be able to update it. Which, if you just give a form control, it doesn't make sense, right? But it makes sense if you put it in a group, right? So that's why we are grouping things together with multiple form controls and creating an array of it. So now you see, now I have, so now I have converted this simple array, which has only two form controls, into a group. Now I'm saying this item will have is a group which will have four values, which is item ID, item name, description, and done, right? So let me write this code now into a simple array for you. So that way it's much easy for you to understand. So if I have to say this, I'll say item ID 1, item name, test, item description, and then we'll say item done, we'll say true, right? Now see, this is the array that we are talking about. This is what will result in. Now we have one, we can have multiple instances of this. So see, this is what this means. The earlier array, this meant only single thing, which means it will always hold item ID, right? So now you see, now this is what it means, that it just has each individual element, right? It has two right now. So it means like this, right? It can hold only one, whereas a group will now hold the entire objects together, right? So this is 1 comma 2 because it's just form control, right? So it can be any value. It's just an array. So we can say, so see, this array which has two controls will result like this. It has two values, that's all. But if we want a complex one like this, we need to group it. That's where we will use this dot form builder dot array, and we will have a group that whenever we add items to this array, it should have all of this like this, right? And in the template, we will use in the template file, the first thing we'll do is we'll give form array name equal to items, and we will then use ng for loop. We will use ng for loop to loop the items from the checkout form dot controls dot items, and then get the item and assign the form group name, then use form controls on each of the item to read and display that value. This is little complex, I know, but what I want you to do is take time, understand how it's done, how I have done it. Just copy, try and replicate what I have done, and then let me know if you have any doubts. Before I leave you, let me also show you, we will capture these values in the next tutorial where we will add and remove elements. So you can always get these values from, it's just an array, right? So when it's an array, you can always get the values. So you can say this dot checkout dot form dot you're trying to get the value, right? So here, what is the value you're trying to get is the question basically. So you can say dot get items dot length, dot item dot length. Okay, we'll fix this up in the next one when we add. We don't have any items here now, but we will get this by reading and inserting some values in it. But for now, just go ahead, try this form array. Try to create a form array in the in your reactive form. Try to get this working. Let me know if you have any doubts. In the next tutorial, I'm going to cover about nested form array, and then we'll talk about and we'll learn how to add and remove elements from the form array. Thank you so much for joining. I hope these tutorials are helpful to you. If you like the video, give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.